always the best shape every fighter's ever been in whenever they go into a championship fight?
I bet you Mike Tyson, when he fought Jake Paul, said, "This is the best shape I've ever been in." and that's just me giving like an idol of mine a hard time. But you're right. That is pretty much every single fight. Welcome back to the OneLife podcast. Today, we're going to be doing our first UFC cast. We are going to be discussing the middleweight division and the lead up to Sean Strickland versus Dricus Du Plessis, number 2.
Let's go.
Alrighty.
First UFC one. Let's go.
Starting us off, we decided to kind of chop this up into some divisions. We wanted to talk about our up-and-comer, who we think is the up-and-comer in the division. Is there anybody who's cause for concern, and who is next in line for the belt after this weekend?
Of course.
You want to start us off with today's up-and-comer?
Yeah, I mean, I think both of us agree on this one. I think our up-and-comer in the UFC middleweight division in particular is Bo Nickal.
Yep, I agree.
And that's entirely based on like our history with wrestling. Both of us love wrestling, and Mans was a national championship wrestler and almost made the Olympic team in 2020. Got beat out by David Taylor.
I don't know who David Taylor is.
But I do know who Bo Nickal is.
Yeah, exactly. So talking about Bo Nickal, tell me, what's so special about this kid? Why do you think he's the up-and-comer in the division? He's the guy to look out for?
Yeah, so he's a world-class wrestler, right? Which obviously gives you a big foot up in the UFC, right? And how long has he been in the UFC again?
I would say 2 to 3 years.
Yes.
So he hasn't been there very long. He's only got 7 professional fights total. He came off Dana White's Contender Series, so I think he did a couple fights there, and then has probably had 5 fights in the UFC since the Contender Series.
Gotcha. And of those 5 fights, 4 of them have been wins by submission, and 2 of them are wins by knockout.
Yep.
Or of his 7 fights, that means all but 1 fight of his have been decided by a non-decision win.
I think 2. I want to say 2. Nope, you're right. 6 of 7 finishes, 5 in the first round.
Yeah, 5 in the first round, and that's an insane record right now.
Yeah.
That said, he hasn't really fought anyone that's like a top tier contender yet. He hasn't fought anyone in the top 10. So
I don't think he's fought a ranked opponent just yet.
Oh, okay.
He just fought Paul Craig, who Paul Craig is coming off of, let's see, he has lost 5 out of his last 6 fights.
Yep.
He is a dangerous fighter. He has traditionally been kind of one-sided. He's a jiu-jitsu specialist.
Okay.
And almost kind of really leans on the jiu-jitsu to the point of neglecting different parts of the game.
Well, I mean, that does do a good job at countering what Bo Nickal is strong at, right? Which is obviously his wrestling ability.
Yep.
And wrestling ability translates very well to jiu-jitsu as well. So I would bet, I would say Bo Nickal is a very skilled jiu-jitsu practitioner.
He's ahead of where he should be time-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely advanced in jiu-jitsu very quickly. He's got triangle submissions and things like that that are not, wrestling based at all. But yes, that actually is a good point. I didn't really think about that, but
because like he has to be very wary of taking shots and trying to take down a jiu-jitsu artist.
That's exactly how the fight went. So there was not much grappling at all in that fight, and probably because he was wary about the jiu-jitsu coming from Paul Craig.
Yep.
One thing I did notice from that fight, so I agree that Bo Nickal is a big up-and-comer in the division. Mm-hmm. I think he's still got a little bit more to prove.
Right.
Okay. So, like I said, his toughest fight yet came from someone who's lost 5 of their last 6 fights. He looked really small in this last fight.
Okay.
Now, granted, Paul Craig might just be a giant for the division.
But everyone in those upper tiers are giants for the division.
Exactly. You look at people like Du Plessis. You look at Paulo Costa.
Khamzat, Chimaev.
Yes.
They're all like really big for the division. They're all cutting 30, 40 pounds.
Yeah. And Bo Nickal looked like he had a little bit of a hard time dealing with that size and strength advantage.
Yeah, it's one of those things where maybe Bo Nickal would be even better if he dropped a division, right? If
Yeah,
he went down.
that's what I was wondering. And but what did he wrestle at in college? Do you remember?
I think 189.
Okay, yeah. So in the 80s. So interesting to think about whether he could drop down to the 170 weight class and be the big guy. Yeah. Does he have that ability? I don't know. He's not the leanest guy in the middleweight division, so I don't think that it's impossible. But there is that diminishing return. It's like
right, and I mean, obviously, when you're cutting a ton, sometimes that does negatively impact you.
Yeah,
right? Like obviously, you and I have talked about this where we would be in favor of same day weigh-ins, right? Because it's more healthy for the fighters to have same day weigh-ins because they have to be at their weight and they can't just cut their water. Otherwise they're going to lose.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that it would allow for more exciting fights.
Yep.
Honestly, because people would be more energized.
Yeah.
It takes away a little bit of that legal cheating.
Yeah.
If you really think, it's like we're the same weight, but I'm way bigger than you kind of thing. It takes a little bit of that away.
Yeah,
which
it would force a bunch of people up divisions. I think the best way to do it would be keep the divisions or increase the weight for each division. Right.
So Joe Rogan argues a lot for creating more divisions.
Yeah.
Just create more weight classes, which I think for what's it called?
I think for like maybe up in the higher. Well, I don't know. Like maybe make another something between heavyweight and light heavyweight.
Yeah, for sure.
And put heavyweight at a bigger weight, right?
Yeah.
Because like if we're eliminating, if we're doing same day weigh-ins, like there's going to be some heavyweights that cut down to heavyweight, and that would be a problem for them.
That's true. Yeah,
right?
I actually didn't even think of that. Yeah, because like just off the top of my head, Francis Ngannou used to cut down from like 300. Yeah.
So like
you cut a lot of weight.
I would argue you should uncap heavyweight. Like, I think, well, do you see, I mean, isn't that how it is in boxing?
I don't know if I agree with uncap it.
Because, like,
I don't know. I didn't think about that. Because
I don't, I think that's a really interesting conversation that we could think about for later.
It is, yeah. But yeah, so going forward, I think that he's doing all the right things right now. But I think there's still more to prove.
Yep,
for
sure.
I think that he has dominated all of his fights except for this last one, which was a tough win, which he still won. He showed that he can fight adversity for the first time,
right?
Which is a huge part of getting into deep in your MMA career is can you get a little bit of pushback from your opponent and not crumble? He showed that he can do that.
He also needs to, I think, learn how to fight a striker who's good at takedown defense, right? Because pretty much all of his fights before this most recent one were him dominating by taking a guy down and submitting them, or him just absolutely dominating them in the fight, right? Like he needs to know how to fight, especially in this weight class, against guys who can strike him and have good takedown defense, right? He's not getting through the top ranks without doing that.
And I think that he's done a good job of managing his career thus far.
Yeah.
He is taking a little bit slower path. He's not jumping into the top ranks because he knows, he's a wrestler.
Right.
He's just gotten into the MMA game. He is not, jumping to try and make stardom, break records.
Right.
He's looking to prolong his career and make sure that when he does get to the top, he can stay there and not jump the gun. And so I think, to your, what you're saying, I think that he will be prepared as long as he stays on that smart path. He'll be prepared once he gets to the top rankings.
That makes sense for sure. Well, what do you think? Who do you think he should fight next? Do you have an idea of someone who you think he should fight next?
I'd say that it's time to break into the top 15.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't think that he should push for, anybody in the top 10. He has earned the hype to be able to do something like that. But I think fighting somebody in the top 15, maybe even a big name like Paulo Costa. He's not number 11. Had a couple tough losses, but would be a testament to Bo Nickal's abilities.
I mean, Paulo Costa's on a pretty long losing streak right now, right?
Yeah.
He fought in the top 5 a couple of times, but he's lost pretty much every one of those fights.
Yeah. Do you know the answer to this? What was his last fight at weight class wise?
Let me see. His last fight, Paulo Costa?
Yes. Did he fight at middleweight last?
I don't know. I think didn't he fight Sean Strickland recently?
Okay, yeah. I think you're correct.
Yeah.
I think he
fought Sean Strickland
and lost.
And that got Sean Strickland the fight, this current Du Plessis fight.
Yep. And the reason I ask is because Paulo Costa has had issues with weight cut.
Oh, okay.
Being such a huge middleweight, he has had to fight at 205 spur of the moment because he missed weight, and I know there's been issues with that. So I was curious if he had remained up at 205 or if his last fight was at middleweight. But I know Sean Strickland has never fought at 205, so that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
So moving on from Bo Nickal, the next thing we want to talk about is there any fighters that are cause for concern in the UFC? And we decided to discuss, and I don't know if I'm totally on board with it yet. Israel Adesanya is the man of topic in the UFC middleweight division. Has he lost his mojo? What do you think?
See, I'm not 100% sure because Israel Adesanya has a really interesting fight career at the top, right? He has a lot of wins, but also a lot of losses up there, right? So let's just go through his quick history for winning the title. I don't know everyone's name perfectly, so bear with me here. So we'll talk about his first title fight. He won it from Gastelum.
Okay, yep.
Then he did a title defense against Whitaker. Then he did another title defense against Costa. Won both of those, right? So that's a good 3-win streak. Then he lost the title to Blachowicz.
Oh, Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So now I see why you're confused. So no, he actually did not.
He did not lose that title?
No. He went up a weight class.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay, so he went up a weight class to try to take the champ.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So
he lost his title to Alex Pereira.
Okay, so he beat Vettori for a title defense.
Yep.
Then he did another defense against Whitaker. Then he had, after Whitaker, he defended against Cannonier. Then he lost to Pereira. Then he won it back from Pereira.
Yeah.
So he has a lot of losses. He has a couple of losses in those, right? In his titles.
Mostly the latter part of that list, right? So he's, like you said, he's beaten Marvin Vettori twice. He's beaten Robert Whitaker twice.
Yep.
He beat a post-prime Anderson Silva.
Yep.
I mean, the list goes on and on. He has beaten like several amazing fighters. Alex Pereira was the first one to dethrone him from the middleweight division, right?
Then he won it back.
Yep, exactly. He came back and did that. But I don't think it was until his loss from Sean Strickland that we started to see a little bit of change in Israel Adesanya.
Okay, so here's the question. Was that a knockout from Strickland? Did he Did he clip Izzy? I don't remember.
Let's go ahead and take a look. Sean Strickland beat Israel Adesanya in a unanimous decision.
Okay.
So it went to decision. But that was the fight that I think kind of changed Israel Adesanya's fight
fortune
presence a little bit.
Yeah, because he doesn't. So before when I've watched him, he just seemed to like be a technician who pieced people apart, kept his distance, and really, I don't know what it is. He like has that really strong jab and a really strong kick, right? And I feel like he doesn't utilize his kicks quite as much as he should anymore. I don't know if that's true. I think like, for instance, when you watch Alex Pereira fight, he like does a ton of leg kicks just to try to weaken his opponent.
That's what crippled Izzy the first fight and almost got him the second fight too.
Yep. And Izzy, like, he has that same ability, right? They both come from a kickboxing background. Izzy has that ability, those lethal kicks as well. And I feel like he just doesn't utilize those to the best of his ability.
So in his last fight with Nasruddin, I thought that he looked technical and looked almost like the Izzy, that we were used to seeing. The biggest issue I thought was he looked slower.
Yeah.
He looked slower with his head movement. He looked slower with his reflexes and his footwork. He was doing a lot of his, faking low, going high, all that stuff.
Yeah,
those
he
kicks.
did a question mark kick in the middle of it. That was pretty sweet.
And I think that my opinion on the Izzy situation is just like I said with Bo Nickal. We have not seen enough yet to say whether Bo Nickal is the star that he's going to be made out of. We haven't seen enough bad performances from Izzy to know whether he's falling yet.
I mean, he has lost 4 of his last 5 fights.
He has, but think about who he's lost to.
Yeah, they're all top 5 fighters.
Exactly. Right? He's at the top of the game still, right? He lost in decision to Sean Strickland, which honestly, I think that it's very possible that Izzy underestimated Sean Strickland. Yeah. Sean Strickland, in general, I think that he's very underestimated. And going into that fight, stylistically, everybody thought that Sean Strickland was going to get chewed up and spit out. Everybody, right. He shocked the world when he beat Izzy.
Right.
Dricus has an amazing record as well. And, his style might be weird, but he's running through the division. And he got Izzy with a pretty nasty face crank. Okay. And then his last fight with Nasruddin, he looked good.
Yeah.
I thought he looked good. He got caught. His chin
got clipped.
His chin looked like glass.
Yeah.
That's
kind of the biggest cause for concern because you can't have a glass chin in this weight class, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to get hit, right?
I mean, and who knows, maybe he bounces back from that, and he did when it was against Alex Pereira, at glass chin or not, everybody that Alex Pereira lays hands on goes out, and he was able to come back from that and use his technique and his high fight IQ. Yeah.
He just, against Alex Pereira in the fight that he won most recently against Alex Pereira, he was very smart. He lost his previous fight because he got caught up against the fence, right? And Alex Pereira just finished him on the fence. And then in that last fight, it seemed like he purposely went against the fence.
A little cat and mouse trick.
Then backed up and then boom, put him out.
Yeah. No, he's always been a cerebral fighter.
Yeah.
My concern about Izzy is not necessarily on his performances. It's that his aura, his attitude seems to have changed.
Yeah.
Izzy thrived off of I'm invincible.
Yeah.
I am that guy. Nobody's going to touch me. I think he's gotten humbled a little bit by his losses. And that's not always a good thing as a fighter.
Right.
He might be growing as a person, and that's great. But it might not be what he needs as a fighter.
Right.
And when he got knocked out by Nasruddin, it was like within 2 seconds, Izzy was up and he's like, dang, I lost. Like, good for you, man. Like like I said, humble, but maybe not what he needs as a fighter. You know, he didn't like the decision, but he accepted the defeat very quickly.
Yeah.
With
like
Izzy,
someone who's got that fire in them,
Exactly.
he would be pissed he would be pissed that he lost. He would want to come up and be like, why'd you stop the fight? I was getting back up,
Yeah.
Like, obviously there are plenty of times when you're like, yeah, you definitely lost the fight. You were definitely out.
Yes.
But you want your fighter to disagree with that.
Yeah.
Right.
No, for sure. You want them to always want to get up and fight again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, losing has just taken a little bit of that edge away, and I hope he finds it again. Because I think that if there's a downfall to Israel Adesanya now, it's going to be because his attitude changed, not because he doesn't have the skills anymore.
Interesting. That's a very interesting thought.
Should we talk about the big fight at hand?
Yeah. I mean, I am very excited. This is going to be a great fight. Super interested in it. However, I do want to talk to you about how the fight was formed. Right.
Okay. Yeah,
Sean Strickland versus Du Plessis. Why was Sean Strickland chosen as the challenger instead of Khamzat Chimaev? Because I don't understand why they would not. I don't understand why Khamzat Chimaev isn't the first ranked fighter right now. and why Sean Strickland is, when Sean Strickland's most recent fight was against Paulo Costa,
Yep.
who isn't in the top 10, whereas Khamzat Chimaev just beat Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. I guess.
Well, so I think there's 2 reasons for that. One, Sean Strickland's last fight with Du Plessis, split decision, a little bit questionable. Sean Strickland stands by, he thinks he won that fight.
Okay.
But he feels like, due to Du Plessis' unique style and the fact that he is just always out there putting out 100% effort, like due to the MMA criteria, he lost the fight, right? And so I think that the UFC and the MMA community sees that as there's unfinished business, and this fight needs to happen again, right? Khamzat Chimaev has not always been at middleweight.
Okay.
Khamzat Chimaev was at welterweight,
Okay.
dominating the welterweight division, but has moved up to middleweight due to health issues. He can't make the weight cut at welterweight. I think he was having serious, like, concerning health issues at 170. So he has the resume overall, and I agree that, you know, there's definitely an argument for it, but I think that's the reason why. I think the last fight was left unfinished business, and Khamzat Chimaev has only he's only had, I think, 2 fights at middleweight. Okay. Dominated them. Right. Like he's in that question for sure.
So one other thing that I learned about Khamzat Chimaev is that he seems like the guy that no one wants to fight. That's what he like. It seems like he's the guy that nobody wants to get in the ring with. Right. Yeah. But an additional thing that I found out recently is that he's been struggling to obtain a visa to fight in the U.S.
Oh, really?
So all of his recent fights, they've been abroad. They've been the ones in.
Actually, I do think I heard about that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, they've been the ones in the Middle East. They've been just fights that did not take place in the U.S. because he's struggled to get a visa to fight in the U.S.
Interesting.
So
interesting. Hey, I mean, do it. Let's do it in Abu Dhabi. You know?
Yeah.
And that's probably what they'll end up doing.
That is definitely what they'll end up doing. I think his next fight. I don't think they've scheduled it yet, but I think they're looking at it being the next Abu Dhabi UFC fight.
Awesome. Do you think that he's next in line?
I 100% think he's next in line.
I agree.
I think he's going to be the next guy fighting for the title, no matter who wins this next fight.
Okay.
He is the obvious next one in line, right?
Okay. Well, let's circle back to that because I have another follow-up question, but I want to reveal who we think is going to win this weekend's fight and talk about our thoughts on the fight.
Okay.
So Adam and I we don't know who each other have picked, but let's go ahead and show it to the camera. I like it.
We think opposite things.
For those of you on watching stream, if you cannot see this because we are children, we use pencils. Mine says Sean Strickland and Adam says Du Plessis.
Yes.
Okay. Talk to me about Du Plessis. What do you see in him? Why do you think he's pulling off the W?
I think Du Plessis is better built for a 5-round fight.
Okay.
I think Sean Strickland is going to get gassed out, and I think Du Plessis has enough of a chin and is going to be able to stick in it enough to win the last 3 rounds. I think Du Plessis just has more gas in the tank. I mean, obviously, Sean Strickland could.
What do you think it comes to? Do you think decision? Do you think he finishes it? What do you think?
I think it's a decision. Okay. I think Du Plessis wins in a decision because he seems to have. I think I looked this up. I don't think he has been knocked out. So he has 2 losses, Du Plessis, and I don't think he's ever been knocked out.
Yeah. And
that's Sean Strickland's game, right? Isn't a big part of his game knocking guys out?
Yes and no. He's done both. You know, he's gone the distance with plenty of fighters. I agree and disagree with you, obviously. I agree that I think it's going to go to decision, and I agree that Dricus is going to be there all 5 rounds pushing, okay?
Yeah.
Both of these guys have that dog in them, right? Yeah. Here's the difference, in my opinion. Sean Strickland has that dog in him, and Du Plessis is all dog, okay? Du Plessis has a very interesting fight style. Okay. He fights like he's 3 deep, and like he's exhausted from round number 2. But he is such a dog that he is going to bring it to you the entire fight.
Okay.
I have a theory about why he fights like this. So he, for the majority of his career, could not breathe out of his nose at all. He could only breathe out his mouth. And he recently, I think in the last 2
Did he
years,
get that nasal cavity surgery?
yeah, I believe he had a, I always get it mixed up, whether he had a deviated septum or the surgery is deviating the septum. I think he had a deviated septum.
It's one of those.
Yes. So he got surgery and he can now breathe out of his nose. But he has had so many years under his belt fighting totally exhausted because he's mouth breathing and not getting enough oxygen that one, I think he's still a mouth breather when he fights. And two, I think that he's developed a style, like he's developed a style within being gassed. And he's just had to have the heart of a lion to go out there and dog through 25 minutes, regardless of being tired. and so you're right. He's not going to stop bringing the heat the entire time.
Right.
He is going to bring the heat the entire time. I think that Sean Strickland is a little bit more crisp and is going to be able to keep up the pace with Dricus Du Plessis. But as Du Plessis gets a little more sloppy, Sean Strickland is going to be able to use his straight down the line punches and get. I don't think it gets a finish. I think it's a decision.
You think it's a decision, and you think Strickland wins?
Yes, I think I'm going to go with split decision.
You think it's split decision again?
In my imagination here, if I was judging the fight, I would give it a unanimous decision to Sean Strickland. But I know how the UFC is, and Du Plessis is going to be such a dog that somebody is going to give him the fight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Du Plessis, I totally agree. He's a fantastic athlete, and he is going to be dangerous for all 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that as long as Sean Strickland is able to avoid a finish, then he can get the win.
Okay. And you don't think that maybe I personally think there's going to be at least so my theory on it is that Du Plessis is going to have 2 rounds where he just is dominant in those rounds, where he's just throwing punches, and Strickland's going to be on a back foot in those 2 rounds.
And you think it's the beginning rounds or the end rounds?
The end rounds.
Okay.
I think the last 2 rounds, I just think Du Plessis is just going to be throwing hands. So I think it's going to be whoever wins that 3rd round, I think is probably going to win the fight.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it's funny because I totally agree with you and disagree with you at the same time, because I know you're right. Dricus is going to be throwing hands in the final rounds, but I think they're going to be that kind of drunk, like looping punches, and I think that's where Sean Strickland is going to capitalize. And he said, I've watched some pre-fight interviews and stuff like that, he's looking to bring the pressure way more, because he thinks he did enough last time, but he's like, well, clearly I have to put a stamp on it and annihilate this man's face.
So I think what's going to happen is, if Sean Strickland wins, I think it's going to be because he's going to clip Du Plessis when he's in those late rounds throwing hands.
Okay.
I think that's how Sean Strickland wins.
Okay, you think the situation where Strickland wins is by finish?
Yes.
Okay. I could see that too.
Yeah.
I could see that too. Either way, it's going to be a brawl.
Yeah, and we did not plan this, that we were arguing opposite fighters,
that's great.
but it's awesome.
Yeah, no. We're going to continue to keep our picks for the main fight secretive to each other, because that was enjoyable. And I think so. What do you think the key is for Du Plessis to get the win?
I think he has to survive the fight.
Okay.
Like, I think the key for him is to
make it go to a decision.
Go to a decision. And
okay.
I think I think it's going to be winning that 3rd round and keeping the gas on and not getting clipped.
Okay.
Right? So, like, he has to keep that gas on, but he can't be dumb about it. Right?
I think that Du Plessis needs to show a new and improved version of himself. Okay. I think that he has all the capabilities, the skill set, the motivation and the physique. He's a massive middleweight. I think he has all the skill set to dominate this fight and dominate the division. But I think that he needs to tighten up the punches a little bit.
Okay.
He needs to tighten it up. He can't be looping in the later rounds. And I think that that's going to get exposed if if he does. So he's a young fighter. It's very possible that we have not seen the top of his game. Pretty cliche, but apparently this is the best shape he's ever been in. That's what he said.
Isn't it always the best shape every fighter's ever been in whenever they go into a championship fight?
I bet you Mike Tyson, when he fought Jake Paul, said, "This is the best shape I've ever been in." and that's just me giving like an idol of mine a hard time. But you're right. That is pretty much every single fight.
Every single fighter says, "Man, this is the best shape I have ever been in. I am cutting the perfect amount. I'm going to be perfect here."
Yeah.
And, then one of them
happens.
loses.
Yeah.
There are two fighters go into a ring. One of them comes out a winner.
Yep. Keys for Sean Strickland. On my side, I think it's constant pressure. He does a really good job of walking people down. And when you're going against somebody like Du Plessis, he's huge.
Right.
He's huge. A little harder to walk somebody down who's, one, willing to bang, and two, is a physical specimen.
Right.
You know, he can walk down Israel Adesanya. He can walk down, most fighters, but Du Plessis is fearless.
Right.
Okay. So he's going to have to not get on the back foot and, push through that aggressiveness and just keep his head movement and his punches tight.
Okay, here's a different question. Do you think that there's going to be much wrestling in this fight at all? Because
not on Sean Strickland's side, possibly on Du Plessis' side.
Yeah, because Du Plessis has 11 wins by submission.
Yeah.
So,
yes, I think that's very possible. I think that Strickland's going to be able to keep it on the feet, but I think that if he gets taken to the ground, he could be in trouble.
Okay.
I think that he has the takedown defense to prevent that from happening, but if he does get to the ground, I think that he's not not that anybody's in an advantage on the bottom, besides maybe three people in the entire UFC. But I think that if he gets to the ground, it's cause for concern.
Okay. And so you think he has good takedown defense, but you don't necessarily think he's good at getting up from the ground.
Not even necessarily that, but when you have someone who's massive, Sean Strickland is going to be the smaller guy in the ring.
Right.
When you have someone like Du Plessis on top of you, who has shown that he has a decorated submission game, it's cause for concern for anybody.
Right.
And so I don't think the ground game is Sean Strickland's specialty.
Right.
I think that he needs to keep it on the feet.
Okay.
He doesn't need to be on the ground.
Yeah. So for tactics for Du Plessis, it might be his goal to put Sean Strickland on the ground.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Because obviously even if you don't submit someone, one of the best parts about taking someone down is gassing them out.
Yeah,
right?
And maybe that's the difference that we see in Du Plessis this fight.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not, tightening up the punches and stuff. Maybe it's an introduction of a more wrestling-based game.
Interesting. Yeah.
Which if that happens, then I think that it would be very interesting, and I don't know who would win. If I knew going into the fight that Du Plessis had a wrestling plan, I would say it's a little bit more 50-50 as far as who's going to win, maybe with the favor on Du Plessis.
Very interesting. I have no idea, honestly. You to give everyone a perspective, Josh knows a whole lot more about the UFC than I do. I do most of my research the week beforehand for these videos.
Yeah, Adam. So Adam has been a NFL Buffalo Bills fan his entire life, and I have been watching UFC since Chuck Liddell, and me and my mom used to love watching the John Jones era.
Yeah.
So we have our respective areas, and we're really enjoying merging it and bringing the information to you guys and getting your opinion on the matter. Back to what we were talking about Khamzat Chimaev.
Okay.
My next question for you is, regardless of the result, we'll say, do you think Khamzat becomes the champion whenever he challenges?
Yes, I think Khamzat wins. Yeah. I think Khamzat beats both these guys. I don't see another guy in this division at all that can beat Khamzat right now, right? Like,
I agree.
His mix between wrestling and striking, he's like all the other Dagestanis, right?
Yeah.
Like
Dangerous
they
wrestler.
are dangerous wrestlers. They they can do everything, and they are. I mean, he's small for the weight class right now, right? He's about the right size.
I think he's the right size. He was huge at welterweight.
Right.
Huge at welterweight. And I think he's big.
Yeah.
He's not huge at middleweight, but he's big still.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's not going to be the biggest guy at middleweight.
No, he's smaller than Du Plessis, but he's probably the same size as Strickland.
Yeah. So like saying he's small for the weight class, he's the right size for the weight class.
Yeah.
When there's guys that are insanely big.
But you think he beats Du Plessis? You think he beats Strickland?
Yeah, I think
You think
so.
he beats Izzy?
I think he beats Izzy.
Yeah.
I don't see Izzy beating him in takedown defense. It would be an interesting fight, right? I think Chimaev would just find a way to take Izzy down, right?
Yeah, no, it's time. It's time for him to get his title fight. He's 14-0.
Yep.
Only 2 fights have gone the distance. He's beaten Robert Whittaker, Kamaru Usman, Kevin Holland, Gilbert Burns, and he has 9
first-round finishes.
Dude, he's got multiple fights where he didn't get touched. I think off the top of my head, I think like him and Bo Nickal are like 2 guys where like they have like multiple wins where they didn't get punched.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like some John Jones level shit. Like that's like John Jones
more
versus
than
Cyril
John
Gane.
Jones. Yeah. Yeah. No, for real. Yeah. I don't know if he got hit at all.
Yeah,
by
I don't
Cyril
think.
Gane.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're really impressive, and I think that it's time for him to get his title shot, and I think that he capitalizes and he beats whoever he fights.
Yeah, for sure.
At welterweight or middleweight.
Yeah,
You know?
I agree. I don't think he's going back down to welterweight. I think he's more likely if he let's say he wins gets the middleweight belt and defends it 1 or 2 times, right? I think he's more likely to go up to light heavyweight than go back down to welterweight to get his second belt.
That's interesting. I don't know how I would view him as a light heavyweight. I think that he could do it. I agree.
I think the hardest part is that Alex Pereira is up at light heavyweight.
That might be the perfect matchup though.
Now, here is right now a different thought.
Okay.
Is Alex Pereira. I think Alex Pereira could go down to middleweight to get that belt and try to be champ in that way. What are your thoughts on Alex Pereira after his next title defense? He already has gone down.
Yeah, he beat Izzy.
Right, but he didn't have the light heavyweight belt at the time.
Oh, so you're saying
I'm saying like to hold both belts at once.
I think that Alex Pereira should, and I might want to save this for another episode. But I have opinions on Alex Pereira. I don't think that's what his goal should be.
You don't think he's going to go back down to middleweight ever?
No, I don't think he should.
You don't think he should?
Nope. I think that he should maintain where he is for now, and then make different moves later.
Okay, so we'll definitely talk about Alex Pereira.
Yeah, because he's going to be fighting. He's going to be fighting next month, so we'll cover that next month. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, cool. All right, y'all. Thanks for joining in for the first OneLife UFC podcast. We are going to be a split focus podcast.
Yep.
That's our plan here. We're going to try and make it easily accessible for you guys. Bringing you UFC news, bringing you NFL news, and then talking about different just life discussions that we find interesting or we think is an issue in the world. We want you all to be able to share in the diversity that we have in our lives and give us your thoughts.
Yeah, and we just really want to talk about all of the things that we are interested in our lives. Like a big part of both of our lives is football and the UFC, but like there's everything else that goes along with your one life, like we like talking about life. We like video games. We might bring that up at some point. There's a whole bunch of different things that we could talk about.
Yep. So thank you all for tuning in, and we hope to see you soon.
Yeah. Make sure you like, subscribe, and throw a comment if you like the video.
All right.
And let us know who you think's going to win the fight.
All right. Peace.
Peace.